Adventures in Accessibility, Journey Before Destination by Jamie Watterson. 10 Years of Ally Bites 2022.
Hello, and welcome to my talk, Adventures in Accessibility. This talk is how small wins, gradual implementation, and incremental understanding can lead to an accessible product. My name is Jamie, and I am a development team lead at Xero, coming from a front-end engineering background. I am passionate about accessibility, diversity, and good UX and design, and I am here because I want to share the message that accessibility is achievable. I'm going to speak briefly about the structure of today's talk. It is based on the journey my former team and I made to make our product area more accessible. I've recently been promoted to team lead, but this work happened while I was an engineer. So today's topics are as follows, starting from what don't we know, capturing our current state, holding ourselves accountable, what is left, and then finishing with a brief summary of how to start your own journey. An important caveat here being that everyone is going to be different. You are the expert of your own product and know best what your journey should look like. We started with the question of what don't we know, asking our more accessibility savvy colleagues to help us figure out, how do screen readers work? How can we add in some basic checks? What else might we be missing? We all have our own biases and lived experiences that influence our understanding. And we are potentially going to miss a lot of valuable feedback if we assume rather than ask. There are many facets to an accessible product. As the developers and designers of our product, we also need to think about how we want it to be used, what the flow of our page should be. This is not something an accessibility expert is necessarily going to be able to tell you. So our first step was figuring out what questions should we ask so we could then find out how to answer them one at a time. To rephrase, what don't we know yet? One important part of answering those questions is taking stock of what support you have, both within the company and without. How can you fill those gaps? What tools are available? Maybe you have some front-end engineers who might not feel confident in accessibility, but could help you with semantic HTML. Maybe you have someone sit down with you and go through your project with a screen reader. Who are the champions of accessibility within your business? Who can lead the charge, find the others, and talk to them? We were lucky to have an amazing accessibility team to support us and an accessibility channel on Slack with a wide range of invested people. Both were instrumental to our learning and success. But if you don't have an accessibility community at your work, why not start one? Capturing the current state. After gaining some shared understanding of accessibility, we decided the next logical step was to capture our current state. Doing a quick internal audit allowed us to find some easy wins, such as making titles more clear, adding missing landmarks to modals, fixing labels mostly by making them more descriptive, or catching those we'd missed. We added a check to our development pipeline that ran automated testing using the JustX tool. This helped guide us while we continued to learn. We also started doing keyboard testing as part of our quality process for each story and checked with the screen reader when there were any significant semantic changes. If you do manual testing, it's quite easy to pivot to doing that testing using a keyboard. This kept up the quality level of any new work and kept the pace sustainable. Holding ourselves accountable and communicating our intent to change. This is a really important step in keeping up momentum. And why is that? If you can get buy-in from your stakeholders on why accessibility is important, they will be on board and supportive of your work. The kind of energy and enthusiasm that engenders is great motivation for continuing to make progress. This is incremental change, so we've got to keep that energy up potentially over a long period of time. Publicly announcing a commitment makes you more likely to keep to it. Additionally, it is great for other teams to have eyes over your journey, particularly if they're curious about starting their own. Share that knowledge around and celebrate your wins publicly. What's left? After making those small, continuous improvements, we were ready to do a more involved audit, for which we engaged the Xero accessibility team. There are external audit providers I will link to later on if you don't have that internally. Because we had already done those incremental changes, the audit was less overwhelming than it might have been otherwise. It returned a spreadsheet of issues ranked from critical, a user cannot perform an action, to low. We completed our one critical error and triaged the rest, bringing them together under our accessibility epic. We worked generally from high to low priority, accepting some quick wins that could keep that momentum up. But we also understood that new research and new technologies mean that making our product accessible does not finish with this audit. And just because someone can use a product doesn't mean that it's an enjoyable experience. That requires continued user research, requesting and listening to your customer feedback, and refining your product. Accessibility is a journey, not a destination. So how to start your own journey? If anything like our approach would work for you, it would be start small, build up. Start small. Do some easier fixes. Look at the quick accessibility checks linked below. Test your work with a screen reader. Test it with a keyboard. Test that the flow makes sense, that moving forward, your new work is as accessible as possible. Add automated testing tools such as JustX to help guide you while you learn. They aren't an indication your product is accessible. In fact, the README for JustX proposes a 30% figure at best, but it catches some errors and omissions such as a missed accessible name. Next, you want to build up. Communicate out your intent to change. Make that commitment and keep your journey visible. Do an external audit, either by an internal team separate to your own or an external provider. Fix the most critical issues immediately. You can then add the others to an accessibility epic and complete them around your other work. Helpful places. Lastly, I wanted to include a few links to help you start. These will be outlined in the description below, as well as included in the slides. So testing libraries, we used JustX. Quick accessibility checks, a really focused list to get you started with some quick wins. Accessibility checklist to help you check over your work. External audits are on offer from Intopia, amongst other services. Join WebAlly Slack channels or create your own. Thank you so much for listening, and all the best on your respective adventures into accessibility.
Celebrating 10 years, Alibytes 2022.